What's going on, everybody? All right, it's Wednesday. I'm actually recording this before the live stream. Before MidLife Live 4, I am recording this. So between now and when this right here airs, it will have taken place. Now, my guess is it's going to go great, I hope. One of the things that means a lot to me is how many people have been coming out to those live streams. You never really know how those things will go. It's kind of a leap of faith. You know, you're kind of, standing on the edge of the building and you're looking over the edge and you're like, or I guess I should use something more appropriate like a diving board. And you're standing on the edge of the diving board hanging out over the water and you're like, do I really want to jump in right now? And then you do it, and then sometimes you're like, that was fun. I'm glad I did that. And for me, the live streams are all about the turnout. If the turnout is high, then they're a blast, like a blast. I've really had fun with the first three. I will say, though, I will be totally honest, live streams stress me out more than anything. Because if something goes wrong, I can't just, edit it out. Live TV, versus a recorded episode of TV. Live streaming my YouTube versus recording my YouTube. Anything could happen. Now, I don't do a lot of second takes. I almost never do second takes. And that's one of the reasons I have mistakes in my videos, and I'll mispronounce names. I'll say the wrong name. I'll say the wrong thing. Because I just almost always do things on one take. But you can't do that with a live stream. So hopefully it went well last night. And if you were there, I can tell you this, I do appreciate anybody who makes those. And if you don't make them, you can always watch it recorded. So there's that. Now, this makes today Wednesday that this is airing. And so that means it's Q&A day. And Q&A day is always a lot of fun. And as always, you guys continue to bring it with great questions. If you have a question for an upcoming episode, down below in the comments, don't even hesitate. Just type that question down there. I'd love to hear what you all are interested in. But let's go ahead and take a look at this week's first question right here. This next one says, good questions, Greg. My thought in this current vintage market, as well as shows, is why didn't they grade these raw cards themselves? Especially if they have both raw and graded cards that they're selling. Just a thought. And NM is used about 80% too much in descriptions. Thank you for your channel. This is the type of question that I would ask. And I don't think anyone's ever asked this question or really anything even like it, but you're thinking exactly how I think. Now, by nature, I'm a little bit of a skeptic. I'm a little bit of a person who's like, should I really trust this? Do I really think this is going to happen? Oh, there's an email that says it's the IRS, so I'm going to go to jail in 2 days. If I don't give them my social security number, it's probably a fake. If there's a phone call from a number I don't recognize, I don't answer it. But yeah, there's certainly some skepticism out there. So what are we talking about? Now, when I'm at the Strongsville show, one of the things that stands out to me is the amount of ungraded cards. There is a huge volume of ungraded cards at the Strongsville show. And it's not like that at the shows that I usually attend. It is usually almost everything that has much value at all has been graded. So a lot of people say, oh yeah, SGC, pretty soon SGC is going to have nothing left to grade because all the old cards will be graded. Go to Strongsville because there are piles of nice cards that are ungraded. And just like you're asking, I have the same question. Why aren't they graded? Generally speaking, now not always, but generally speaking, if you take a card that isn't graded It is in its ungraded state. And then you send it into SGC, for example, for $15. The value that is added to the card is more than the $15. Now, not always, but almost always. Most of the time, you add value by getting cards graded. Now, is that the reason to grade cards? Now, a person who's not into value and is a pure collector would say, no, don't do that. A person who hates graded cards would say, no, don't do that. And I do understand that perspective. Absolutely, I understand that perspective. But there's also this person's a dealer. This person is here to make money from cards. They're not a collector. Now, why would a collector not grade a card? That makes perfect sense to me. But this dealer has these cards that they're trying to sell. I'm assuming they want to get as much money as possible for them, but they don't have them graded. Why not? Now, in my Strongsville video, I showed a few tables that just had tons of ungraded stuff, and they weren't like minor stars. They're like Jackie Robinson and Ted Williams and Willie Mays and stuff from the 50s. And I'm like, literally, I was thinking this exact same thing. Why aren't they graded? So if you're a dealer and your goal is to make money from cards, and you have your cards that aren't graded, where in a lot of cases, if they're graded, they'll add value, and they're not graded, it makes me go, well, why not? And the skeptic in me says, there must be a reason why not. At this point, I personally don't buy many cards for over maybe $100 if the card's not graded, because I don't really know. I can't really trust it. And then I know there are going to be people saying, but Greg, there are cards in holders that have been altered and messed with too. I understand that, but at least there's been a vetting process. At least a good chunk of those have been caught. Sure, some are going to slip through, but a lot of them don't slip through, and they've been vetted by a company who has standards and practices. So why wouldn't that dealer do that? Why wouldn't that dealer get them graded before trying to sell them to maximize their profit? I don't know. Now, somebody might also say, well, there are some people who prefer cards ungraded. And because there are some people who prefer cards ungraded, they are able to sell them to those people. That makes sense. But if we walked into Strongsville and I sat down, I polled people as they came in, and I said, all right, $500 card in front of you. Would you prefer that it be graded or ungraded? I would think most of them would say, well, I think I'd probably better be safe than sorry and rather have it graded. Which is why the card is worth more when it's graded. Because there's more demand for graded cards than ungraded cards, because there's at least a certain level of trust and a certain level of, well, it's probably legit. Now, again, it's not 100%, but it's better than nothing. So I think this is a fantastic question. And I've wondered the same thing myself. I have been at shows with my dad, and he said, hey, come here. There was a card in particular about 6 months ago. He said, look at this 57 Topps Mickey Mantle. It's really nice. What do you think? And I looked at it, and I'm like, that's a lot of money to spend on a card that's not graded. There's got to be something going on. There's got to be a reason. And he ended up not buying it. Grading companies aren't perfect, as we know. They will make mistakes, as we know. But at least we know the card's been measured. We know it's been looked at under heavy magnification. We know that it's been evaluated by at least one person for at least a minute who has certain things that they're looking for. So at least you have that. It catches some of the issues. But yeah, I wonder the same thing, especially when the dealer goes, well, that card to me, I think is going to get a 6 or a 7. So I'm going to charge 6 or 7 prices. And I'm like, well, that must be nice. You get to charge 6 or 7 prices because it might get a 6 or a 7 because you think it looks like a 6 or a 7. Well, then why not send it in, have it get the 6 or the 7, and then charge 6 or 7 prices? And now I've got people saying, but Greg, you're now calling the card not a card. You're calling a number. It's not about the number. It's not about the slab. Are we buying slabs or are we buying cards? I know. But you know what I mean. The number gives us criteria to determine the quality of the card. It's a great question. And I don't have an answer because I wondered the same thing. What would I do if I was those dealers? I'd send them all in because I think you'll walk away with more money as a result. My good friend Tony, Southern Collector 14, says, my question for next week is this. Would you expand the floor space at Strongsville to allow for more vintage dealers? Or do you think the small size keeps it the perfect size? Would too much of a good thing in this case be a bad thing? I love that my buddy Tony asks questions for the channel, for Q&A, even though I text with him pretty much every day. I love it because what he's saying is, I think this is a topic worth discussing and hearing your thoughts and then hearing other people's thoughts. That's what he's doing there, and I love that. Even though he could call me anytime, I talk to him all the time, we text all the time, he says, I think this is a topic worth talking about. And I agree. So, Strongsville, what if it keeps growing? Because it was definitely bigger this year than it was last year. My allergies are killing me. It was definitely bigger this year than it was last year. And I've had a lot of people say, man, I'm not missing out again. I'm going next year. So it will be a bigger show next year than it was this year. And at what point is that a bad thing? Does there come a point where the Strongsville show becomes large enough that it's a bad thing? I mean, there are 2 ice rinks. My understanding is they're not open to the idea of filling both ice rinks for the card show because they've always got stuff going in the other rink. I mean, I'm sure if they paid enough that they could get both. Here's my take. My take is the thing that makes this show special. There's a couple of things that make the show special. Number 1, it's vintage only. Number 2, for whatever reason, Chris from Missouri, amongst a few other people, have convinced people that it's worth traveling to this show. And because everybody agrees to travel to the show, a bunch of people get together in a small space for a weekend. That's the part that I think is the most important part. It's not that it's an all vintage show. That's great. But it's that everybody agrees that they're willing to travel and come together for it, which makes it fun. And when you're at the National, more people come together. I mean, there are more people that I know that will be at the National than at Strongsville. But I think I like Strongsville more. And the reason is because you have more FaceTime with people at Strongsville. The National is so large that you get lost. There's so much going on. It's too much. There's too much traffic. There's too many people. There's too many tables. It's too large of a venue. There are too many hotels. At Strongsville, it's a small venue. You're all right there. You stay in the same place. So the moment we outgrow the hotel, I won't go to Strongsville anymore. The moment that everybody can't get a room at the Strongsville, what was it, Best Western? It's not going to be worth going to anymore. The reason it's fun is because it's this tiny little fishbowl. And you can walk across the parking lot to the show. Now, I suppose there could be a larger show that's right with a hotel right on top of it, and everyone agrees to go and it's vintage only. I suppose that would work. In fact, I'm sure that would work. If there was a hotel with a large enough ballroom that could have a larger show, and then the hotel can house everybody, and everybody agrees to go on the same weekend, that could work. I mean, I know there are some shows like that. I mean, I've never been to the Dallas show, but isn't the Dallas show like at a hotel or next to a hotel? So people could do that with the Dallas show. And then if one of the Dallas shows was a vintage only show, that could work. I mean, that could work. But again, the thing that makes it special is that everybody converges on it at the same time. It's like, it could get to the point where it's too much. So do I think, let me read the question. Where's the question, Tony? I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. My question is, would you expand a floor space? So I haven't even touched on the question. I think I would be willing, if I was the show, would I expand the floor space? If you could continue, if you would not water down the tables, if you could get more quality vintage dealers to go to Strongsville and then widen the aisles a little bit so it's easier to move around, and you filled both ice rinks, and the hotel was basically booked, blocked off for just the show attendees, that could work. I think if it was all in the ice rink, that could work. But as soon as it outgrows probably that space, it's I don't see how it works anymore. It's like, so I went to an elementary school where it was K through 6. And in each grade level, there was like 2 teachers. So we had about 60 kids per grade level. And you knew everybody. You knew everybody in your class. You knew everybody in the other class of that grade. You knew everybody a year above you. You knew everybody a year below you. You just kind of knew everyone. You go out to recess and you pick, the football teams or the kickball teams or whatever it is you were doing. And you knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody. And then you move up to the middle school. And it goes from this thing where everybody knows everybody to now there's a whole bunch of extra people there. And you'll be walking along through the halls and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that kid. I had 2nd and 5th grade with that guy. Don't even say hi to him anymore. You don't even wave. There's just a sea of people moving about. And it's just like 2 ships passing in the night. Because it's no longer what it was. It was this small, little, quaint place where y'all knew each other and y'all kind of coexisted for several years. And then, all of a sudden, you're in this massive facility of middle school and high school. And those kids that you used to maybe even sit near at lunch, you don't even talk to them anymore because there's just so many people. That's kind of the difference between the National and Strongsville. At Strongsville, everywhere you turn, you know everybody. They know you. You're having fun. You're eating meals together. Your room's on floor 1. Theirs is on floor 2. But then as I'm preparing for the National, a couple of my friends are staying at the same hotel as me. But a lot of my friends aren't. A lot of my friends aren't in a hotel that's even walking distance. How are we going to even have dinner together? How are we going to have breakfast together? We aren't. That's the answer. We aren't. Huge shows have pros and they have cons. Small shows have pros and they have cons. And the pros and the cons of a show like Strongsville are different than the pros and the cons of a show like The National. So would I expand the floor space? I would be willing to expand the floor space as long as you can keep the dynamic of you sleep where the show is, you can walk straight to the show, and everybody there's not so many people that you can't house all of the people who are there from out of town. As long as you can house all the people from out of town under one roof and no driving is required and everybody is kind of right there. Because that's actually the question that I haven't done a good job of answering. Yes, I would add tables I would drain the other ice rink for a weekend. I would fill that as well. I would widen the tables. I would grow into that. I would block out the whole hotel for no other events. You have to use the Strongsville Card Show promo code to book a room. And that's where I would cap it. That's just me. But I'm just a guy. My guy Jay says, great Q&A, Greg. I have a future question. I do not sell ever, but I believe that maybe this is something that would be beneficial to me in building more funds for my card purchases. I've heard people say that the bargain bin inserts in commons are great, as there are always people looking to build sets or grab some cheap cards. I have a lot of that in modern, but I'm having a hard time letting it go. I don't have an answer as to why, other than I got rid of my childhood cards long ago and instantly regretted it. These are not childhood cards, though, that I'm talking about. These cards don't have real meaning to me. But is it worth it to set up at a show when you aren't really selling anything over $5? The show would be a monthly show, so it's smaller dealers. I mean, even if I sold $30 in cards and paid a $10 table fee, it seems like a waste of 5 hours to net $20. But I'm being pessimistic. I'm sure there's a way to make this a much shorter question. All right, I have strong feelings on this one. And the reason that you missed your childhood cards is completely different than the cards that you currently have that you aren't sure if you want to cut them loose. Now, the movie Toy Story. Everybody can relate to Toy Story because there are things that we are so connected with. There are just these objects that we get so connected with that we like place emotion on them. You know, Woody is just a stuffed animal. You know, Buzz Lightyear is just a toy space ranger. But to the owner of Woody and Buzz, it's more than that. It's more than that. And as in the movie, as the boy gets older, he still cares about those things more than he wants to admit. But it's not like they're just objects. It's like when your grandpa comes back from Hawaii and gives you a shirt that says Hawaii on it. And it's not really that good looking of a shirt, but you don't want to throw it away because somebody you care about gave it to you and thought about you while you were there. They were there, and you attach emotion to the object. Your childhood cards, you had an emotional attachment to. It's not that they were cards in your possession and then they left your possession. That's not the part that you were connected with. The part that you were connected with is these were my cards from my childhood. These were memories attached to them. These are cards that tell part of the story of the collection that I'm in now. Even if those cards don't have value, those cards are different than the blaster box that you bought at Target and you pulled a couple of minor stars in. Those are not the same. You don't have any emotional attachment to a lot of these cards that you're now not wanting to let go of because you're afraid of feeling the way that you felt about the items that you did have an emotional attachment to. We absolutely place emotion onto certain objects, but you don't have that emotion. Now, if it's a card, if this is a card that your child gave you, your spouse said, "Oh, for your birthday, I know you like Willie Stargell. Here's a 1980 Willie Stargell." 1980 Willie Stargell. I don't even know where I'm coming up with this. Whatever the card is, okay? Whatever the card is, does Willie Stargell even have a 1980 card? I don't know. I'm not a Willie Stargell collector. But whatever the card is, if somebody gave it to you and it has that attachment to it, you will regret getting rid of that card. But if it's a card that you were at a card show and there was a dollar box and you picked up 20 cards from the dollar box and you've decided that 17 of them you don't want anymore because they don't really fit in what your collecting is doing, you're not going to miss those cards. You're not going to miss them. You'll miss the card that your wife gave you. You'll miss the card that your friend gave you. You'll miss the card that you pulled out of a pack when you were 8. You're not going to miss the card that you opened a box of Prism in 2022. You're not going to miss that card. Could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong. I'm sharing where I place my emotional attachment. Some people have more emotional. Some people have emotional attachment to everything, and that we see those on TLC on the show Hoarders. But most of us have some emotional attachment on some things, and no emotional attachment on other things. I have a feeling that these modern cards you don't have much emotional attachment to, like you did the cards that you got rid of. That's my take, but I could be wrong. This next one says, here's a question for next week regarding more ultra-modern cards. Example, Panini Prism or Mosaic. Why is there such a huge premium paid for cards that have low serial numbered parallels when there are literally dozens of parallels and colors of the exact same card? I find the modern hobby exhausting when looking for a quality card of one of my favorite players. There's just way too many parallels. Doesn't it make sense that base rookie cards are practically worthless? I prefer vintage cards, but being a huge 49ers fan makes me want to continue to pick up the best players on my team today. I punch in the player's name and rookie card into the eBay search, and literally thousands of different parallels with ridiculous prices show up. Navigating this is exhausting for sure. All right. You are asking me, essentially, I think what you're asking me is, why do some people value manufactured scarcity while some people don't? And it sounds like you don't. You sit there and go, the card out of 25 versus the card out of 250, the only difference is the color, and one says out of 25 and one says out of 250. I don't get it. What you are doing is you're showing, I think, in this question, is that you don't really have a lot of value for manufactured scarcity. There are other people who do. Now, I don't really, but I guess I kind of do. Because one of the guys I PC is my former student, who I've talked about many times, who's in the Tigers organization. His name is Matt Manning. And I bought his superfractor of his base flagship rookie card from Topps Chrome. I bought the 1-of-1 superfractor, and I paid like $300 for it. And I have a stack of that same card in different parallels. I wouldn't have paid $300 for any of the other ones. I paid $300 for that one of one because it's the only one. So, and I'm a guy who isn't really into that whole manufactured scarcity thing. But here's the thing. When somebody is opening a pack, and we've all seen people open packs. Like we've all watched videos of people flipping it. You know, they kind of move the cards over and you can kind of see the colors in the pack. And sometimes, oh, there's a black. Oh, there's a gold. Oh, there's a red, whatever. It's kind of exciting. When there's one that looks that way, and there's only one of it, it is like Willy Wonka's golden ticket to a certain extent. And there's only one. And it seems ridiculous, and maybe it is ridiculous. But there's only one. And that's the one. They produced one that looks like that. And that's the one you're seeing right now. It's not like some, Ty Cobb card that there's 5 of and known to exist. But it's not the same thing. It's a different thing. And to me, the Ty Cobb card that there's 5 known to exist is way more interesting. And I don't understand manufactured scarcity. But I've participated in it. So I don't know how to answer this question. I kind of think when you say it the way that you said it, it is kind of silly. It's a different card. It's a different color of the same card out of a different number, and it's supposedly worth a lot more. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I've still done it a little bit, not a lot. I mean, you guys know me. You guys, if you've watched the channel at all, you know I don't have a lot of modern cards. I'm not really big on modern cards, but I do understand the appeal. I absolutely understand the appeal. And what's the long-term value? I don't know. I don't know what the long-term value is. None of us know what the long-term value is. We all hope we know what the long-term value is. Just collect what you like. And I thought it was kind of cool when I had the opportunity to buy my former students' rookie card, flagship rookie card, Topps Chrome, in the Superfractor, where there's one. That seemed cool to me, and it brought me enough joy that I was willing to part with 3 crisp $100 bills to acquire it. So at the end of the day, if the joy that you get is worth the money you have to fork over for it, then you should do it. And it may not always make sense. But a lot of things don't make sense. I don't know if I did a good job sharing my thoughts on that, but I tried. And this one says, a question for next week. Do you think vintage card prices will be impacted by recent turbulence in the stock market and economy? Nobody really understands financial markets. Nobody really, we think we do. And we look at history and we go, well, when something similar happened, then this is what happened. And so we can kind of guess what the result will be. But even if you look at something like, the COVID crisis, like the stock market absolutely tumbled. Now, some people thought the world was going to end. And if the world ended, money wouldn't matter anyway. There was a book that I read years and years ago. My gosh, 25 years ago. I believe it was called Alas, Babylon. If you would have told me when I hit record a second ago that I would be talking about a book called Alas, Babylon, I wouldn't have believed you. But there was this book called The Last Babylon. I think that's what it was. I'm almost sure that's what it was called. And it was basically post-apocalyptic nuclear fallout world. And you start to really see what things actually have value and what things don't. And in a time like COVID, where there's so much uncertainty and there's so many people that are, really going from A to Z on some stuff. And I mean, I'm not trying to make light of the situation. There were a lot of people who lost their lives. It was not a good thing, but I didn't really think it was the end of the world. I didn't think it was the end of the world. So when people started selling off the market, I go, all right, I guess this means I got to go buy because everybody's selling off. I'm not doing a very good job of leading off with answering questions today. I'm just hearing these topics and then I'm just talking. But I hope that you guys are hanging there with me. So what do I think is going to happen? Now, I like just throwing out ideas and I like throwing out thoughts and then just kind of kicking them around. So I absolutely have said and think that it's very possible that if the stock market struggles, and the stock market's been on this wild ride. If the tariff thing continues, if the stock market struggles, if the world economy comes to a grinding halt, if there's layoffs, do I think the card market will be affected? Well, sure. If just like when there's an inflationary spiral, there's less money to spend on things that aren't needs. And at the end of the day, for most of us, cards aren't needs. But I might circle back to that. But then there's also a thing that I threw out a couple of weeks ago that's certainly possible. And one of the things that's possible is if the stock market is crashing and people want to pull money out of the stock market, you want to put it into something. Because if you put it into a savings account, you're not getting hardly any return on it. So some people, I certainly think it's possible that if people go, the stock market is a wild ride right now, I'm not up for that. They pull their money out. I want to put it in something. What am I going to put it in? It's not impossible that they put it in some other sort of investment like arts or collectibles. That's certainly possible. And if you look at what the auction houses have been doing lately, auction house prices are on fire for cards. And that's even, there were just some REA and Mile High auctions a few days ago, and there were cards, they weren't giving them away. So that's possible. It's possible that the stock market struggling could potentially help cards. That is possible as people are looking for other places to put their money. It's also absolutely possible that people have less disposable income because people are losing their jobs, things are more expensive, money is tighter, and the first place they're going to cut are things like vacations and extras and luxury items and collectible items. That's absolutely possible. So just like when, historically when there's a recession, things like, vacation spots struggle. So do I think that's going to happen? Maybe. Again, none of us know. We can definitely speculate. And I have and could and will make arguments for both of those things because I think it's interesting to talk about the possibilities. I just know that there are some things in people's lives that are considered extras. But there are also some things that seem like extras, but some people aren't willing to part with. Like there are some people that no matter what happens in the economy, they will not get rid of their gym membership. Now, some people would say, well, that's because gym membership is a healthy lifestyle. It's keeping your body in good condition so you can be healthy. And some people go to the gym as a recreation. And for most people, I think it's a combination of the two. But there are some people who absolutely under no circumstances would ever give up their gym membership. And there are some people who the first thing they would give up if money got tight is their gym membership. Same thing with golf. There are certain people that want to golf once a week. It doesn't matter how bad the economy gets. They will golf once a week because they need it for their mental health, their stress release, their escape. They will not give it up. And there are other people where if money got tight, it's the first thing that they would give up is, I guess I'm not going to be going golfing at $100 a weekend because I don't have money to afford golf because my, insurance just doubled. It's hard to say. Now, for cards, for me, cards are sort of an escape from reality. It's a place that when I'm upset about things or I'm bummed about things or I don't want to be thinking about stresses from work. I don't want to be thinking about stresses from politics and world events and stuff. I go watch card videos. I look at cards. I research cards. That's my escape. Now, if my money got tight, I wouldn't really want to give that up because I kind of need a little bit of an escape at times from this world. But I also wouldn't be spending money on cards if I couldn't pay my bills. Paying my bills, taking care of my family, making sure everybody has what they need, that is my first priority. So if things ever got tight to the point where I couldn't cover those things, absolutely I would stop buying cards. So to answer your question, could do either. I could sit on a debate stage on opposite side of the argument, and I could debate either side of it. What do I think will happen? I think if the stock market were to go down 50% and people were going to start getting laid off and people were having a hard time paying their bills and the economy really took a crap, then yeah, I think that cards would go down because a lot of people would sell their cards to pay for needs. And enough people would sell what they have that the supply would go way up and the prices would come down. Some of us are diehards that we're not going to sell our cards unless it is the last thing we have before keeping a roof over our head. But some people, it's one of the first things they'd give up. So it doesn't take that many people to sell off their cards to spike the supply to make the prices go down. So I think it's more likely that's what would happen. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Or hopefully we won't. I don't know that either. If you guys have a question for an upcoming episode, please do not hesitate to type it down below into the comments.